All right. So I'm here with Caitlin, and I'm going to talk about AI on your phone. That's my first story. I thought was very interesting. You can run GPT-3 um, artificial intelligence text generator on your phone, on a Raspberry Pi, on your laptop. Now, it runs really slow on the phone of the Raspberry Pi, but it apparently runs pretty well on a Mac, standard Mac. So I'm thinking I should add it to my students as a project, although it's kind of illegal. I mean, the reason it works is the actual model. It requires a version of this large language model that runs with something like 4 billion floating point numbers, which it uses to calculate. And the reason why this is possible is because you don't do the learning. Somebody else has already done the learning. In fact, this company with a product, LLAMA is their product, and they did not intend to release it. They released the code, but they did not release, good, a guest, the important guest, AstroCat. Anyway, yeah, they did not release the parameters, the 4 billion numbers you need, which are expensive, but somebody leaked them on BitTorrent secretly, so they're out. So using that, all you have to do is do the calculation, and all that means is take the existing text and turn it into numbers, and then run it through this sort of matrix to calculate more numbers, and you can lower the precision down to just 4 bits per number, and it still works pretty well. So that's how you can run it on a really weak device. So anyway, that's the rush of this text generating AI to everything is going to go even faster now.
So what if you don't have a weak device? What if, let's say, for instance, you have an i9 and a RTX 4090?
I imagine you can do better.
Yes.
They different versions. There's versions like 9 billion. There's versions with like 40 billion. You can have more bits, and the cloud services we're using are using monstrous machines with tons of GPUs. So presumably it gets more and more accurate. And I saw an article last week that showed how this works. The thing about it is it doesn't have any concept of truth, and it doesn't know what it's saying. So if you increase the strength of the computer, it's more accurate at giving you wrong numbers. Like they tried asking you, what happens if you break a mirror? And if you have like the 4 billion model, it says, well, then you can't see your reflection anymore. But if you pump it up to like 100 billion, then it says, oh, you'll have 7 years of bad luck, because it can more efficiently look up what people typically say in response to that question.
Right.
So,
and yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, without a nervous system, it really has no conception of reality.
that's right. Oh, it doesn't even have any. This is what Noam Chomsky wrote about. He said, linguist, he said, look, it doesn't even process this language correctly. It doesn't even know what it's saying.
Right.
It's just predicting the next word. So all it's giving is sort of a sort of surface theatrical mock-up of what a human writing would look like.
Exactly. And I mean, it is interesting because I do think it is giving us insights into how the human mind works. And I do think a lot of our thought processes are pattern recognition and pattern repetition. But
like the instinctive part and the
right.
reflex part. Skinner thought this is all we had.
Yeah.
All we are is stimulus response, and that's all ChatGPT is.
Right, exactly. Because it is completely separate from reality, it has no nervous system. It cannot see or understand that, actions have consequences, that there's such a thing as true and false, and how it relates to the outside world. There's no way for the system to, give any information other than, essentially predictive text. And I'm getting cat-tailed right now.
Well, you deserve it.
Yes.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us about this ridiculous thing about birds?
So it turns out birds are not real.
Not these birds.
Not these birds, no. So apparently these people, so there's this article on Gizmodo by Andrew Liszewski, talking about how researchers took taxidermied birds and turned them into drones. So these are literally birds that are not real, that are actual robots. And they're being piloted by people on the ground, supposedly as like spy devices, which will be used by the government. And of course, if they're really clever, they can have these drones sit on power lines to recharge.
Yeah.
I mean, this is literally, birds are not real.
Yeah.
In reality.
There were doubters, but I remain true and faithful.
Yes. All you conspiracy people out there, I apologize. No, birds actually are not real. Here we go. Now, if you look really carefully, you can kind of see what they're doing. They have some wires going from the back here, and it looks. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the tail. Maybe it's just a protector thing, but yeah, no, they just basically implanted motors inside the bird, and then they just sort of control it very rudimentary, and they get it to fly. So
Yeah, so they haven't got machine guns in there yet or anything cool, but
yeah, but it's a spy device. It's
yeah.
it'll be used by the Clinton Foundation to, of course, spy on their political enemies.
Yeah, maybe to inject people with vaccines.
Yes.
So,
5G. They'll substitute 5G towers. So.
yeah. Well, anyway, I saw a couple articles about Florida because it looks like DeSantis is going to be maybe our next president. And so the book bans in Florida are some authors are writing. This woman, I think, had 20 of her books banned, and she talks about how it works. The rule says that the school board must review every request to ban a book by a parent, and they must do it in like 2 weeks. And so what they do is they then ban like 100 books at a time, so you don't possibly have time to review them, so you just have to take them off the shelves. And then what happens, as I know very much from being a college professor, once any whisper of any kind of controversy appears, the administration always clamps down harshly to prevent any possible controversy. So people are just taking books off the shelves because some parent might possibly object to them, and until maybe they'll have time to like review them, which won't happen for any time soon. So it's the book bans are pretty extreme and pretty severe and growing. And the other one, of course, I was glad to see an article about the Surgeon General in Florida. I mean, and Ron DeSantis started out promoting the vaccines and saying the vaccines were good. But when he, like Donald Trump, discovered that the Republican base will not accept that, he completely reversed course, and now he's totally anti-vax. And he put this guy, Joseph Ladapo, in charge, who is from the basically lunatic fringe of witch doctors. They were a part of this group that claims that diseases are caused by demon possession, and vaccines kill people and stuff. And he's the Surgeon General of Florida now. So it's a lot of articles about Republicans becoming more and more anti-vax and blocking vaccine mandates and refusing to vaccinate their kids. It is quite disturbing as it rushes through. And, it makes me worry about the nation. But then I remember things like the Red Scare, which is very similar. I mean, Trump and DeSantis and this gang of anti-science deniers are very much like Joseph McCarthy and the Red Scare from the 50s. So
I don't think so. So the Red Scare very much had an antagonistic enemy outside the United States.
Right.
What Ron DeSantis and a lot of these people
the point was the enemy was here.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, right. And
I have this list in my hand of 200 members of Congress that are in the Communist Party.
Right. But the problem with the Communist Party was that they were supposedly associated with, other countries outside, and what this very much reminds me of is fascist regimes. Honestly, I'm really thinking more like Italy.
Yeah.
Right. Especially with like the banning of the books, going after, vulnerable minority groups, in particular, especially the Nazis. So the first group that the Nazis went after were not the Jewish people, and they weren't even the gays. The first group that the Nazis went after were the transgenders.
Yeah.
So this is very reminiscent of early Nazi Germany and of early Mussolini Italy, which is very concerning.
Yes, indeed. All right, and one other thing I think I'll mention now is I all my podcasts, I think even Pulse Security Weekly, I said this blockbuster room temperature superconductor came out from the University of Rochester that runs at a relatively low pressure and would be really amazing. It's hit all the press everywhere. The previous article was the cover story in Nature a few years ago, and they retracted it. The people that put this out apparently are highly controversial. They could not back up their claims. Their data was obviously faked in the previous paper, and they were never able to explain it. In the new paper, people cannot reproduce these results. They cannot recreate this material, and the authors refuse to let anybody have any of their samples because they're making a startup to get rich off of making room temperature superconductors. So it rocketed through the press, and everybody, including me, said, this is going to be great. We'll have room temperature superconductors. But now it looks like maybe it's all just fake. So nothing has been proven yet, but it's too bad. So anyway, we may not see any of that good stuff anytime soon. Anyway, you've got the Twitter API.
Yeah, so this is really surprising. So normally social media giants have APIs, which are application programming interfaces, which is a fancy way of saying that you can write an application that will query the, for example, Facebook servers for information about, say, what you've posted or what other people posted, etc. And Twitter has an API and has an API for a while. I've never used it, but apparently, and this article is by Wired Magazine by Chris Stagel Walker, and Twitter is charging $42,000 per month to get access to their API. And not only, and you might say, well, Twitter has so much data. This is probably worth it to some, data scraping company somewhere. Well, no, because that, basically $42,000 per month will only get you access to 0.3% of the company's total tweets. So I don't, well, we all know what's going on with Twitter. It got, Elon Musked, and a bunch of ridiculous stuff is going on. But I mean, this is ridiculous. APIs, generally speaking, especially for social media platforms, are free. And, if you're thinking like, we're going to charge money for it, you're thinking like $10, $20 a month. No, they're charging $42,000 for what is essentially almost less than 0.5% of the total tweets. So
I can see how that might possibly be useful for somebody who wants to do market research or something. But the only people I saw were academics, all saying, well, my whole research has been studying social media on Twitter, and I won't be able to do it all because we can't possibly afford this.
Yeah, they can't afford it, and they get very little data too. Like you said, the people.
Well, 0.5% of all the tweets is a statistically significant sample. If you wanted to, sample things about politics or culture or something, that's not useless, but it's too expensive.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it's not useless, but it's not entirely useful as well.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
You probably wouldn't want them all. You might not have the ability to process them all anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even just like 2 or 5% would have been a much more reasonable number. But
yeah, the amazing thing is you wonder how how Musk ever got to space, considering how insane he seems to be.
He hires people that knows what they're doing, and he's very good at acquiring capital because he's so flamboyant. So he wins people over. He has a big following. People give him capital, and then he uses that capital to hire people who can actually build spacecraft.
Well, there's a book coming out. I heard an interview with the man reviewing him who's trying to defend him on all these fronts, who's shadowing him for like months and then writing a book. So he'll describe his style. But he says he's very much involved right down to the bottom, like micromanaging. He's on the assembly line criticizing what people are doing. That's his style. So it's not true that other people are running it. He's actually making decisions right down in the production line. And so I don't know. It's his decisions on matters of cars and spaceships seems to be much better than all his decisions at Twitter.
I don't know. I mean, the guy is also like a racist and a bad father and a bigot. And I mean, he's just not a good person. I mean, I don't say that about a lot of people, but he's really just not someone you would want to aspire to.
Well, this biographer made the point that tends to be true. That was true of Edison and Henry Ford and a whole lot of the giants. The people that rise to the top tend to be these larger than life figures with these outrageous flaws screaming out. Seems to come along with it.
Right. Well, there's also the studies that show that there's a large amount of sort of narcissism as well as sociopathy that attracts people to the top, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I think you really have to believe, like Musk really believes that he is saving the world. He is saving the human race. We're going to get to Mars before we destroy this planet. The future of consciousness in the universe is dependent on his technique, and he believes that he's saving the world at Twitter. He's ending our political strife by giving a free forum. So he is driven by this sort of messianic complex that he is saving the world and all the people he tramples on should be grateful to be sacrificed for the higher cause, which is pretty much what it is to be that kind of level of a leader, I guess. Anyway, so Brazil is seizing the Flipper Zeros. They have decided that Flipper Zero is a crime tool and cannot be delivered. So if you order a Flipper Zero, they will impound it and send it back. And they're trying to get approval, and they're not succeeding in getting approval in Brazil. So this seems to be these dual-use tools like Metasploit and many others that can be used for good or evil are always controversial. But for some reason, the Flipper Zero is freaking people out a lot. I know. I saw your workshop on it. Looks like a lot of fun, but I don't know why it's so scary. I guess people think you can get in your car and your front door with it.
I think it's so easy to use. A lot of the times, a lot of these hacking tools are so esoteric, like Metasploit. Like, it can do bad things. But in order to do it, first you want to set up your database, and then you want to connect to the CLI. And then now you want to look through, various CVEs. And to the average person, this is all just gobbledygook, right?
But not the average teenager. I mean,
yeah, but not the average teenager.
There's a lot of people that can do that.
Yes.
If you think, oh, nobody around me knows how to do that, you're wrong.
Well, no one around typical legislators know how to do that.
Like their kids probably do, or their grandkids.
Maybe, yes. But yeah, but the legislators can see the Flipper Zero. It has a friendly interface. They know you push a button and suddenly you're into Tesla charging ports. I mean,
Yeah, all right. And anyway, there's another one I was really amazed at. EpiPens that contain this drug in case you have an allergic attack. If you send them to space, the radiation causes the medicine to degrade into very toxic chemicals, and they become useless and poisonous, even after a brief trip to space. And NASA was apparently not aware of this. And it was high school students that figured this out by joining a NASA program where you can send up a little space cube. So they sent up EpiPens in the space cube and tested them when they came back, and found out that the radiation had destroyed the medicine. So I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Go kids.
Yeah, although
this is why we need to just be sending everything into space, especially cats named Astro's cat.
Yeah, but it also means what happens if you do have an allergic reaction in space? You're pretty much hosed. Of course, space is just really bad for you. I mean,
yeah. Well, I was going to say, it's very unlikely that you're going to have allergic reactions on the ISS.
I don't know.
I mean, all the food has been pre-prepared for every astronaut. There's no wildflowers. There's no.
Well, sure, but we're moving into the age of space tourism, where lots of stranger people will be going up there. Anyway, it's sure to happen sooner or later. Anyway, so you've got another AI from Microsoft.
Yes. So everyone knows that AI technology is improving rapidly. This is the new hotness from computer science. This is the promise of computer science, why we started the field in the first place. Here we go. We have artificial intelligence. Finally, it's been decades. Everyone thought it was a pipe dream. It's not a pipe dream. And now suddenly we realize it's not a pipe dream. So we're throwing a bunch of money into it. Well, okay. So there's this article by Evening Standard by, let's see, who's this by? Saqib Shah. And it's talking about GPT-4. So ChatGPT uses GPT-3 or GPT 3.5, depending on what you're using. GPT-4 will be coming in the next week or so. So that's the next version. And what's different about GPT-4? Well, GPT-4 is going to add even more language, to the model. But in particular, it's going to also have video features. So one of the new hotness in AI is that for a few months now, years even, AI has been able to generate images. In fact, when it first happened, we talked about it on this podcast, and we were like, look at this. We can make funny images using AI. Well, Google and Microsoft and a bunch of tech giants are looking at not only image generation, but video generation. And so GPT-4 will have very rudimentary skills that can render video based on text input. So you say, give me a rubber ducky flying through space as a video, and it will, render a rubber duck, flying through space. And it can also work with video. So you can send it video and say, hey, clear up this image for me, and zoom and enhance. And the AI can zoom and enhance and automatically profile, the most obvious person that would be committing the crime and get accused of racism and stuff like that. Anyway,
That's what I
so
think. That's of course what you'll do. Take this
yes,
blurry picture from like surveillance and show me who did it, and AI will cheerfully show you an accurate picture of the wrong person. Then you go,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It will totally, like I said, it will. The problem with AI is that it is too close to human intelligence, and that it picks up not only on the functional information of language, but also the subtle biases of language and the subtle biases in our society. So you end up making AI that can sometimes be a little racist and
well,
sexist.
well, yeah, but I think what you get is what you get if you ask like a human artist. No, that's blurry. Paint it sharper. Okay, they'll make it sharper. It's not the right person anymore, but you
Right.
didn't ask for that. It
Right.
can't be that. They can make it look sharper.
Yeah, they'll make it look sharper. And not only that, it will try to meet quote unquote expectations.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of our expectations are based on stereotypes,
Right.
based on biases. And so, yeah, so if people do try to use ChatGPT to enhance videos and crimes, there might be some racial profiling going on. Just saying, Microsoft,
yeah,
don't.
almost certainly.
Yeah.
Because it's just finding what the most likely expected thing is. So
Right.
it's going to go for a stereotype.
Exactly. I mean, and that's a known issue with artificial intelligence. But right, so yeah, GPT-4 is coming out soon, and presumably in a few months there'll be GPT-5.
So
Or
is this GPT-4 something you can run on a normal desktop or what?
no, this will be on the cloud.
Okay.
Maybe in a few years someone will leak the data to run it on your local machine, like you were talking about. But
Yeah. Yeah, I know there had been for like a month. There's been an eternal episode of Seinfeld generated by AI running in Twitch somewhere, and I guess
yes,
that's an earlier version of the same thing.
yeah. So it got into trouble because it was using the more modern version of GPT, but to save money, they used an older version, and then the older version didn't know not to make anti-LGBT jokes.
Yeah.
So it had to get canceled for a little bit as they fixed the site's oopsie daisy of bigotry.
Yep. Well, this is, I think, essentially the cultural warriors of our age, like DeSantis and the Republicans saying, you're confusing me with all these new things I have to think, for I don't want to think in the old rut. And of course, the AI is having to go through the same thing. What, you mean I have to try harder than just doing the normal thing I was getting away with?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It tried to find the laziest jokes, and
Yeah.
it punched down by accident, and that's not okay for AI or humans to do.
Not okay in blue states. They should just restrict that thing to the red states.
Well, no, it's not okay from a comedic perspective because it's just not funny.
Not funny to Democrats.
No, not funny. Period. Like it's not. That's not a very good basis for like making funny jokes to punch down. It's like, because you're not really speaking truth to power or anything like that. You're just
But that's not necessarily the goal. Yeah, anyway, it's
well, no. So there are people that really do think that they are oppressed because the gays are telling them to
yes,
not be mean to them,
that's
and
right.
therefore the jokes about gays are really punching. But that's a very warped perception of reality, and one that is wrong. And
Well, see, there you go again. You're
but
putting value judgments on it. That's a market you could sell your product to if you
but
don't care. If all you care about is money.
right. But I mean, there's objective reality, and then there's understanding where bigotry comes from. That's
Yeah, it's an important issue. Anyway,
yeah.
I had one more thing that I wanted to point out to my students. An IMC.com article has one about a research how to study better, which I thought was actually pretty good. It sounds like usual clickbait, but when I look through here, they point out like reading something over and over doesn't really do you much good, and highlighting and underline doesn't really do you much good. What does good is practice tests, like doing problems to practice, and distributed practice, where you do a little bit and then go away from it and then do a little bit more, and interleaving practice with different kinds of problems. And I find that to be very much true in practice. The most extreme one is the subnetting, the mathematics in my course. If you try to teach it all in one night, nobody learns it. If you do a little bit every night over several weeks, it's easy. So anyway, I thought that might help some people that are trying to learn things. And that's all we have. There'll be another one on Friday.